First tonight, it's been a bewildering couple of months for Bill Barr. Imagine you're Bill Barr. Barr first served as Attorney General in the George H.W. Bush administration. That was 1991. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez had just turned 2 years old at the time. That's how long ago it was. Then this February, purely by process of elimination, basically because he was the one guy who could get confirmed, Barr became Attorney General of the United States once again. The Mueller investigation was nearly over when he got the job. Barr probably didn't expect to become a major figure in the Russia story because he had nothing to do with it. As far as we know, Barr never met with secret agents in Prague. He never texted Vladimir Putin on his BlackBerry. He never managed a Macedonian content farm. If Barr betrayed this country for a sack of rubles or a case of vodka, nobody has ever proved it. But it doesn't matter. The Russia story cannot die. CNN, the Washington Post, the Democratic Party, many others have too much invested in that story. The fact it's been proven to be untrue is irrelevant to them. Bill Barr is a handy way to keep Russia in the news. Watch today's talking point in action. Somewhere in the basement of the Democratic National Committee, some messaging consultant has decided that credibility is the most effective line of attack. Watch.
You're now joining the chorus of Democrats saying he should resign. Why?
Well, first of all, his credibility was shredded yesterday.
He played a home game today, and his credibility was destroyed.
This Attorney General lacks all credibility.
He has burned through any credibility he had in that role, and he should resign.
What we have here is what we always have here every single time. We have projection. They call you what they themselves are, whether it's privileged or bigoted or hateful, or in this case, fraudulent. These are the same people who spent 2 full years ginning up hysteria over a bogus story. But it's the rest of us, they tell us with a straight face, who lack credibility. These are the people who hated the results of a Democratic election so much that they dropped everything and worked tirelessly for years in order to nullify that election. So guess what they're calling other people tonight? Enemies of democracy.
The Attorney General joined with his supervisor, the President of the United States, decided to show the American people that this is not a democracy.
Stop this attack on our republic and save this nation, its democracy.
Is simply another step in the administration's growing attack on American democracy. This is a grave danger for American democracy, and it is part of the attack on American democracy by this administration.
English is the largest language in the history of the world. More nouns, more adjectives, more verbs than any language ever. And yet, night after night, we've managed to find tape of people saying exactly the same thing. Almost like it's coordinated. Tonight it's, they're attacking our democracy, says the guy who refuses to wait until the next election to throw out the elected president. Okay. It went on like this today, and on and on. Democrats stopped in the end trying to make a rational case for their position or even use words. By the end, they were resorting to prop comedy. Here's Congressman Steve Cohen of Memphis.
We are looking at images of you at that committee hearing today with what appears to be a bucket of fried chicken. And, oh, there it is. You brought props, I see, with you here. What is the message you're trying to send?
The message is that Bill Barr is a chicken. He was chicken to come to the House Judiciary Committee. He does not deserve respect. He has lowered the bar for lawyers and for the Attorney General.
He deserves no respect. He's lowered the bar, says the guy who just brought a bucket of fried chicken onto the House floor. So how long does this circus continue? And by the way, why is it still in progress? Why hasn't it left town yet? Glenn Greenwald founded The Intercept. He's followed the Russia story since the very first day. We're happy to have him for the first time in the studio tonight. Glenn, thanks very much for coming on. So if you think about it for a second, it's a little strange that this is continuing since, the Mueller report is out. President likely not going to be impeached on the basis of anything the Mueller report found. So what is the point of continuing with the story?
And the point is everything that you just said, namely that for 3 years, it's almost been 3 years, it started in mid-2016, the Democrats have put all their eggs in one basket, which is that they've insisted the central theme of the Trump presidency is that he was a Russian agent who collaborated with the Kremlin in the election, and they all agreed that Robert Mueller was going to be empowered to get to the bottom of this, and we were all going to accept whatever it was that Mueller found. And what Mueller found was that the entire conspiracy theory was a hoax, that there's no evidence to establish that it's true. And they led their flock to believe for so long and profited greatly from it. Cable networks that did it saw massive increases in their ratings. Newspapers that did it saw huge subscription increases. They made tons of money exploiting people like con artists. And now it's kind of like the leader of an apocalyptic doomsday cult who keeps promising the world's going to end on a certain date, and then the date comes and the world still goes. And so you need to keep giving people reasons to follow you and to believe. And we are now descended from Trump is a Russian agent, he's controlled by the Kremlin, he conspired with the Russians, to people eating fried chicken because they say that Bill Barr waited 3 weeks before releasing the entire Mueller report that he himself gave to the public.
Where's the part where we stop, assess what we've just seen for the past 3 years, hold people accountable for it, learn something from it, and move on?
I think the reason that you're seeing so much intense rage toward Bill Barr is because they know what he's now going to do, which is what journalists should be doing, and at least some of us are, which is asking the question, which is now, that for me, the central question in American politics. How is it that our discourse has been drowned out for almost 3 years by a conspiracy theory, or really a set of conspiracy theories, as inflammatory and as dangerous as you can possibly get, that turned out to be totally untrue? Who started this conspiracy theory? How were the vast invasive powers of the FBI, NSA, and CIA used to spy and infiltrate a campaign and spy on American citizens in the name of a conspiracy? As a leftist, somebody who is steeped in the history of the Church Commission, the abuses of the FBI under Hoover, these are the most serious things that can happen. You want to talk about threats to democracy? How about spying on and listening in on the calls of American citizens by convincing a FISA court that they're Russian agents, when then you unleash a prosecutor for 22 months who concludes that they aren't Russian agents, that there's no evidence to suggest that that was the case? That's the real scandal, and that's where the investigation is now going to turn, and that's why they're panicking about Bill Barr, because they know that he is going to unflinchingly pursue that.
I couldn't agree more. And in fact, that's where the show is turning right now. Glenn Greenwald, thank you very much.
Great to be with you.
During yesterday's hearing, Senator Sheldon Whitehouse of Rhode Island said he was outraged that the Attorney General would call FBI monitoring of the Trump campaign spying.
You used the word spying about authorized DOJ investigative activities.
I think spying is a good English word that, in fact, doesn't have synonyms, because it is the broadest word incorporating really all forms of covert intelligence collection. So I'm not going to back off the word spying. And up until all the fall outrage a couple of weeks ago, it's commonly used in the press to refer to authorized activities, such as referring to the FISA court as the spy court.
But it's not commonly used by the department.
What?
It is not commonly used by the department. My time is
commonly used by me.
Barr, of course, was right. Almost always the guy who speaks in plain and clear English is right. That's why he's speaking plainly, because he's not trying to hide anything. A new New York Times story reveals that the existence of a previously unknown informant was used to spy on the Trump campaign. A woman who went by the alias Azra Turk was sent to meet with campaign aide George Papadopoulos and tried to extract information from him. He joins us tonight. George, thanks very much for coming on. So briefly describe your experience with the woman you believe was sent to spy on the Trump campaign by the Obama administration.
Sure, that's a great question. And I received an unsolicited email in September of 2016 from a man named Stefan Halper, who was suggesting that he wanted to pay me $3,000 to write a report on energy security questions that I was a recognized expert on at the time in Israel, Turkey, and Cyprus. And I looked him up. I'd never heard of him before. I just saw that he had worked in 4 U.S. administrations, and he was a professor at Cambridge. So I accepted his offer. He flew me to London, where he paid a 5-star hotel, my flight. And he said, before I meet with you, I need you to meet my assistant. And he put this assistant in an email chain along with me. And I saw her name was Azra Turk. I recognized it as Turkish, which was a bit suspicious right away, because my policy positions throughout my entire career were very hostile to Turkey. So when I noticed a Turkish name, I didn't understand why she'd be involved. But anyways, I went and I met with her, and she was very suggestive, as you can understand. Younger, very flirtatious, and I right away understood that this wasn't a Cambridge assistant. And, she barely spoke English, she was very flirty, and was trying to do two things. One, to extract information about my professional connections in the Middle East, and two, to see if I had any information that she could potentially extract for me about Trump in Russia, which of course is nonsense. And so anyways, after I meet with her, she is then introduced to me again the next day with Stefan Halper, where she goes from this suggestive young lady to now pouring us coffee. And Stefan Halper is very belligerent. I explained it in my book, how belligerent he is, how he invited me to basically castigate me about my policy positions. And of course, Azra Turk then took me to dinner and was just basically trying to extract information. I was very suspicious. And, from that moment, I knew there was something wrong, and I was laughing about it. But now, of course, the New York Times reported that she was some sort of agent, but I don't think she was FBI. I think she was CIA.
But she was dispatched by the Obama administration. Barack Obama was the president of the United States, led the executive branch, including CIA and FBI and every other agency, to spy on, in effect, the Trump campaign. Am I missing something, or is that what happened?
That's absolutely what happened, and I want to make something very clear here. I don't think President Trump was tweeting about UK interference out of the blue for no reason last week, because let me explain why. The day I met with Stefan Halper and Azra Turk in London, I was invited by the British Ministry of Foreign Affairs to meet with them at their offices, including with Tobias Ellwood, who was the number 2 at the time under Boris Johnson. So clearly, when the New York Times suggested in their reporting today that the British were told of this operation, I believe the British actually were actively spying on me as well. And I think part of what President Trump was tweeting last week about the British spying was about this involvement in this operation in London. So I guess we have a lot more to find out.
I would just remind you, you wound up going to jail briefly, correct?
Yes, I did. I went for 11 nights.
Yeah. So you go to jail. You didn't spy for Russia. It turns out you didn't do anything wrong, and your life is destroyed. But we shouldn't figure out how this happened because why? I don't know. George, congratulations.
I think we definitely need to find out.
You think? Yes, I think we do. And your book is a good way to start that process. Thanks for joining us tonight, George.
Thanks a lot for having me. Thanks a lot for having me, Tucker. Thank you.
Of course.